Hi everyone, welcome back to DGMC, Diwan-e-Ghalib, Meri Zubani. To all our returning viewers, we are very happy that you could join us again. And for the new viewers, we are delighted you discovered the podcast and decided to tune in for the first time. Now, if you were with me in the previous episode, you would know that currently we are going through Ghazal 21 from Diwan-e-Ghalib, Ye Na Thi Humaari Qismat. So as always, I will read the couplet first and then we will get into the impression. Today we are going to pick up the 7th couplet. We already have 6 couplets covered and 6 episodes posted for those on the channel. So this is how the couplet goes. Gham Agarche Jaan-Gusil hai. Gham Agarche Jaan-Gusil hai. पै कहाँ बचे के दिल है. गम अगरचे जहाँ गुसिल है, पै कहाँ बचे के दिल है. गमे इश्क गर ना होता, गमे रोजगार होता. So let's do a quick approximate translation and then we will get into the impression. So first line, गम अगरचे जहाँ गुसिल है. Gum means sorrow, grief, melancholy, pain. Agarche, if, right? Jaan-Gusil, Ja is life. Gusil is something which can ruin, which can spoil, which can break, which can destroy. So Jaan-Gusil would be something that can break, destroy, ruin a life. So Gham Agarche Jaan-Gusil hai. If grief and sorrow and misery are life destroying, life ruining. पै कहाँ बचे के दिल है. पै यहाँ पर you can take it as पर, but, right? So पै कहाँ बचे के दिल है. But कहाँ बचे? Where do you save yourself? By extension, how do you save yourself? दिल है. As long as you have a heart, right? So the first line goes, the complete translation is, if sorrow is life destroying, how do you save yourself from it? As long as you have a heart. And the second line is Game ishq gar na hota. Game ishq, sorrow, grief of being in love. Gar na hota, had it not been there. So, had the grief of loving not been there, Game rozgar hota, the grief of worldly toil and labor and earning livelihood would have taken its place. So that is the approximate translation. Now before we get into the actual impression of the couplet, I wanted to bring to your attention a concept that we have in the past discussed in some of the DGMZ podcast episodes. And this concept is about how heart and liver are symbolized in Urdu poetry. So usually heart will be considered the seat of love and passion, and liver will be considered the seat of courage and strength. Now many times in Urdu poetry they are used synonymously, but sometimes they are used separately. So it seems that in this couplet, this concept is at the foundation, right? And I say that because in the first line when Ghalib says, Gham Agarche Jaan-Gusil hai, pै कहाँ बचे के दिल है. So the heart is there, and from it stems almost this chain reaction, right? And what is this chain reaction? If you have a heart, you will inevitably love, and if you love, you will inevitably hurt. So that is the chain reaction. Chain reaction, as we all know, is defined as a series of events so related to each other that each one will initiate the next one. And that's what's happening here, right? The fact that you have a heart initiates the fact that you are going to love. And the fact that you love is going to initiate the fact that you will get hurt. So, Ghalib draws our attention to this fact that having a heart will inevitably lead to loving something or someone. नहीं कोई इंसा मोहब्बत से खाली, हर एक रूह प्यासी, हर एक दिल सवाली. If you have a heart, you will love. You will love. And then if you will love, it will lead to grief. मुनव्वर राना का ये शेर, इश्क है तो इश्क का इजहार होना चाहिए, आपको चेहरे से भी बीमार होना चाहिए. So, loving without grief and pain is not possible. It is not possible. And why? Because inevitably, when you start loving someone, in parallel, you start giving them this power or ability to hurt you. Anything or anyone you don't love or care about does not have this power, does not have this ability. It is a privilege that is given to them. Some will abuse it, some will not. But yeah, you will not be hurt by people you don't care about. Now, Ghalib in this first line is saying that, okay, fine, grief kills and destroys life. I admit it, right? Agarche Jaan-Gusil. Fine. If grief does destroy and kill life, then पे कहाँ बचे के दिल है. How do you save yourself from it? As long as you have a heart, there is no escape. पे कहाँ बचे, पर कैसे बचें कि दिल है. We have a heart. How do we escape it? So, by extension, there is no escape from grief. And if grief is going to kill us, well, so be it. Because as long as we have a heart, we will love. As long as we love, we will grieve. Now moving on to the second line, where he says, Game ishq gar na hota, game rozgar hota. अब यहाँ पर ऐसा लगता है कि Ghalib is presenting a choice to us. It almost seems that this second line captures a choice. And before we get into the choice, let me share with you this Bob Marley quote, right, which is coming to mind. The quote is, "The truth is, everyone is going to hurt you. The truth is, everyone is going to hurt you. You just got to find the ones worth suffering for." And I think this quote fits beautifully in our couplet, right? So Bob Marley, just like Ghalib, Bob Marley, just like Ghalib, is saying, how do you escape grief as long as you have a heart? There's no escape. So the fact is established that if there is a heart, it is going to love, it is going to hurt. Now, what you can do is make a choice. Who do you give this privilege to? Who do you give this power to? Who do you allow to hurt you? By extension, who are you going to love? Who are you going to love? Because inevitably, you are going to give this power, this privilege, this ability to them in parallel to hurt you. So, it seems, yes, there is a choice one will inevitably make. There is a choice one will inevitably make as to who is going to give this, who is going to get this privilege, who is going to get this power and who is going to be worth. Now, love is not an emotion you can only feel for a person. You can feel love for things, worldly things, worldly experiences, worldly possessions, assets, social status, stability, luxury, riches. I mean, the list is endless. Everybody is making the choice of bestowing their love on something or someone. And there's a variety of things you can choose from. So it's not as if you are just bound to be able to love a person. You can love a thing, you can love an experience, you can love anything for that matter, right? So here what Ghalib is highlighting is almost yes, there is a choice with that hint of warning, right? That remember that if you by effort and by sheer determination avoid loving a person and hence avoid getting hurt, avoid grieving for a person, don't think that you will dodge the bullet. Because, yeah, you will not love a person, you will not grieve for a person, but then you will fall in love with something. It can be anything. यहाँ पे गमे रोजगार की बात कर रहे हैं, but that's a very generic term. उसमें बहुत कुछ आ जाता है. So Ghalib is saying, don't think that you will dodge the bullet. Yes, you will dodge the bullet in terms of you are not in love with a person, you're not grieving a person, but then you will inevitably land up loving a thing. And then you will grieve and feel discontented and miserable because of a thing. Because somewhere you will have to love, somewhere you will have to want, somewhere you will have to covet something. Now, so there is a choice, right? There is a choice between loving someone and loving something, or so it seems in this couplet. Let's spend a few minutes on these choices. It's not as if these choices are a rare topic of discussion that we are picking up for the first time, right? This is this is a very common topic. Everybody discusses, everybody has an opinion on it, right? And everybody makes a very personalized decision around this choice. So let's pick up first what loving worldly things and possessions entail. So grief is part of both. That the couplet has already established. So if grief is part of both, how do we choose? We can't choose it basis the grief they bring to the table, because that is a common factor in both scenarios. We have to choose basis something else. What else does loving someone or loving something bring to the table? We can probably do a short comparative analysis and make a choice based on that, because grief is not going to help. It's common. So here are some famous quotes around being rich, right? Having a high social status, having a lot of possessions, if you may. So this quote is from Steve Jobs. Being the richest man in the cemetery doesn't matter to me. This next one is by W.C. Fields. A rich man is nothing but a poor man with money. The next one is from Glenn Frey. There's another kind of poverty that only rich men know. A moral malnutrition that starves their very souls. Next one is by Benjamin Franklin. Content makes poor men rich. Discontent makes rich men poor. The next one is from Robert Greene in Ghazal. You see, after all, few rich men own their property. The property owns them. And then the next one is by Henry David Thoreau. The setting sun is reflected from the windows of the almshouse as brightly as from the rich man's abode. And then there's one from the Bible, Matthew 19, 23 to 26. Then said Jesus unto his disciples, Verily I say unto you, that a rich man shall hardly enter into the kingdom of heaven. And again I say unto you, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God. And the last one is Oscar Wilde, another of my favorites. Who, being loved, is poor? Oh, no one. I hate my riches. They are a burden. So just some famous quotes from famous people who probably have had the experience of owning a lot of material possessions and shared their thoughts on that. And clearly loving, coveting, and wanting worldly possessions does have a huge potential of leaving you feeling very discontented, very malnutritioned, very at lack and loss many a times. So let's look into some famous quotes about loving a person. This one is from Socrates. One word frees us of all the weight and pain in life. That word is love. Now this one is from Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. Love grants in a moment what toil can hardly achieve in an age. Next one is from Mahatma Gandhi. Where there is love, there is life. This one is from Plato. The madness of love, the greatest of heaven's blessings. The next one is from Alfred Tennyson. 'Tis better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. And then this one is from Lord Byron. Love will find a way through paths where wolves fear to prey. The next one is from Rumi. Love is the whole thing. We are only pieces. And then this one is from Villa Cather. Where there is great love, there are always miracles. And then next one is from Leo Tolstoy. Everything that I understand, I only understand because I love. This one is from Victor Hugo, and this is the last one. And remember, as it was written, to love another person is to see the face of God. So this is what love brings to the table per some famous people and their famous quotes. Now, On paper, it does not seem like a very difficult choice. It does not seem like a very difficult choice theoretically. Yes, love, though it will also bring grief. Loving a person, though it will also bring grief, will fulfill you, nourish you, empower you, both your heart and your soul in multiple ways. Vis-a-vis loving possessions or things might not do that, but still grieve you as much, if not more. Right? So this is probably a good way to figure out. Okay, so other than grief, this is what is coming. This is what these two things bring to the table, and we can make a choice. Now, for people, this is a choice. They will have to think. They will have to probably do their comparative analysis and choose. But for a lover, it's a very easy choice. It is pretty much set in stone. The lover will always choose Gham-e-Ishq, will always choose to love a person and be grieved as part of loving that person. A lover will never choose to love a thing or a possession and allow that the privilege and power to hurt him. Now, and in the previous couplet also, right, we did cover rage sang se tapakta wo lahu ki phir na thamta jise gam samajh rahe ho ye agar sharar hota. So it's not as if it's an easy choice for the lover. It's not all flowers and rainbows, right? Especially in Ghalib's Diwan, it is unrequited love. So it's not as if this grief is easy. For all practical purposes, the grief love brings to the table is more intense probably, because there is just no hope. With possessions, probably you still have some hope. If I don't get this, probably I can get that. And if I don't get that, there are choices at least available to you to pursue. But when you love a person, there is no choice. It's just this one person. And if you're not going to get them, that's it. End of story. Right? So there is a lot of gum. The lover knows that probably love will not be part of the equation also. It will just be unrequited love. And all I will get out of this choice I'm making is grief, misery, pain. But still, for the lover, the choice is clear. He would rather have this grief, misery and pain with or without love than the grief, misery and pain of Rozgar. And the practicality of the world is such that you cannot sit at home and just love a person, right? The practicality of the world is you have to love a person, but you have to strike a balance and pay the bills also, right? So Gham-e-Rozgar does go hand in hand with Gham-e-Ishq, but somehow as a lover you walk that fine line with great concentration, right? Because you will always prioritize loving someone, but in parallel have to keep fulfilling the obligations, the worldly obligations. And the lover, in fact, will draw his strength and inspiration to fulfill these worldly obligations from the love he has for his beloved. And वो एक बहुत खूबसूरत जज्बात है, which Urdu poetry captures many times in many ways, that though it is unrequited love, though it is not responded, though it is not reciprocated, it still has the power to encourage, to give the lover the strength to go on. Not only on his path of loving the beloved, but also on his path of meeting these worldly obligations. अब आप ये देखिए मिर्ज़ा गालिब का ही ये शेर, गो मैं रहा रहनाए सितम हाय रोज़गार, गो मैं रहा रहनाए सितम हाय रोज़गार, लेकिन तेरे ख्याल से गाफिल नहीं रहा. So basically Ghalib is saying, though from head to toe I was mortgaged, I was pledged, I was bound to the worldly obligations. From head to toe, totally submerged in them, bound in them. But still, there was never a moment when I was negligent, ignorant, oblivious to your thought, to the thought of loving you, to the thought of wanting you, desiring you. So amidst all the worldly noise, I still never, even for 1 second, let go of the thought of you. And then Abdul Hamid Adam का ये शेर, तेरी आँखों के आसरे के बगैर, तेरी आँखों के आसरे के बगैर कब गमे रोज़गार उठता है. Beautiful couplet. The approximate translation is that without the support and strength drawn from your eyes, without the support and strength drawn from your eyes, how would I be able to bear the burdens of daily livelihood, worldly obligations? So your eyes and what I see in them is the source of my strength, is the source of my inspiration to face and fulfill the worldly obligations. And then शकील बदायूं का ये शेर, मैं जी रहा हूँ गम कदाए रोज़गार में, मैं जी रहा हूँ गम कदाए रोज़गार में, तेरी मोहब्बतों का सहारा लिए हुए. So the approximate translation is, the only way I'm surviving in this world full of grief and misery created by earning a livelihood, worldly obligations and all this thing, the only way I'm surviving this is by drawing my strength and support from your love. That's the only way I'm surviving this. That's the only way I'm keeping this ship afloat, because of the strength and support I draw from your love. So clearly the lover not only chooses the grief caused by the loving, caused by loving the beloved, but that grief, lot of lovers draw their source, their strength, their support, their inspiration from it, right? Ghalib goes even one step further, and he says that loving and grieving for the beloved leaves the lover incapable of loving and grieving for anything else, which anything else will include all the worldly things also. Ghalib says, if you really love someone and you really grieve for that person, that intensity is so much, that experience is such that it will completely encompass you. It will completely engulf you. There will be nothing left. There will be no bandwidth left to love or grieve for anything else. उनका ये शेर, हम मशके फ़िक्रे वस्लो गमे हिज्र से असद. बिलीव मी, एक ही वर्ड है. हम मशके फ़िक्रे वस्लो गमे हिज्र से असद लायक नहीं रहे हैं गमे रोजगार के. So the approximate translation is that we lovers, by consistent using of thought and anxiety about the union and consistently thinking of the grief of separation, are rendered incapable, unfit to grieve the ins and outs of livelihood and any and every worldly thing. Right? So that is Ghalib's share. And then last share, वहशत रज़ा अली कलकातवी का. सीने में मेरे दागे गमे इश्क नाबी है. सीने में मेरे दागे गमे इश्क नाबी है, एक गौहरे नायाब मेरे हाथ लगा है. Beautiful couplet. What it means is that in my heart is buried a dage game ishke nabi, a prophet in the form of the scar this grief of loving my beloved has left. It's as pure, as pious, as soulful as a prophet. Nabi is a prophet. So the scar that the grief of loving her has left is a prophet. Like a prophet in my heart. It's almost a rare pearl that I have got my hands on. So this is how the lover describes the scars caused by the grief of loving the beloved. They describe the scars as a prophet residing in their heart, as a precious, rare pearl buried deep in their heart. That is the reverence, that is the respect a lover has for the grief caused by loving the beloved. And last one, I said that for the previous one, but this is the last one. रईस नियाजी का ये शेर. गम जब उनका दिया हुआ गम है, गम जब उनका दिया हुआ गम है, हैफ उस आँख पर जो पुरनम है. Beautiful couplet. The approximate translation is, if the grief I am bearing is the grief given by her, by extension the beloved. So if the grief that I am bearing is the grief given by the beloved, then I should be ashamed if my eyes are wet with tears. Basically, by extension, I should not be lamenting, I should not be crying, I should not be complaining or hurting because of this grief. Because after all, this grief has been given by the beloved. And like we covered in the previous couplet, this grief is something rare. It's a rare pearl. It's almost like a pure, pious, soulful prophet living in my heart. So that kind of, I think, seals the verdict on the choice that between Game Ishq and Game Rozgar, for the lover, the choice is very easy to make. The choice is easy to make, though it is not easy to execute. The grief and the pain the lover feels is in no way less intense than the grief, misery, and pain loving possessions would bring to your heart. But the fact remains that the lover finds the grief caused by loving a person a source of strength, a source of support, a source of inspiration. That feeling is absent when you love something. And even if you're lucky enough to get it, will it really inspire you like this? Will it really nourish your soul like this? Will it really make you feel alive like this? That is the question which Ghalib is trying to answer in this couplet. So that takes care of गम अगरचे जान-गुसिल है, पै कहाँ बचे के दिल है, गमे इश्क करना होता, गमे रोजगार होता. I think we are going to stop here. If you like the impression, do share your feedback. If you know someone who would enjoy this content, share it via your social media, be it YouTube, WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram. A share from you on the social media can mean a lot for the channel, and that is one way you can show your appreciation and support for the channel. As always, for the new viewers, my strong recommendation would be to tune into the introduction to DGMZ episode, because that will give you a good insight into the motivation and inspiration behind this podcast. On the homepage of the channel, there are various playlists. Feel free to explore all of them. One playlist is actually dedicated to this ghazal only, because this is one famous ghazal from Ghalib, and we are doing one share per episode. That's not the usual way we cover ghazals here. We would cover more than one couplet, but for this ghazal we are picking one couplet per episode because the ghazal demands that. It demands that. So there's a full playlist dedicated to this ghazal only. There's another playlist dedicated to all the ghazal episodes at DGMZ. Another one that is dedicated to the DGMZ mini-series we are currently running, where we are going through the immortal love story of Laila and Majnun. In addition, there are also other playlists on various topics, so feel free to explore them and access the episodes which seem to interest you. Now, let me close the episode and send a lot of love and light to all you dear viewers, and thanks for watching.